So earbud boxes nowadays almost look like ring boxes. So you could be like,
AirPods. Will you listen to music
Will
with
you
me?
listen to music with me?
yeah.
Yes,
And you
yes,
get all kind of
1,000
pretty
times.
colors and skins and.
That's just
not
so
want
wrong.
to
And you can
load.
just give like a promised Bluetooth speaker instead.
So I also, meanwhile, that's hilarious. But also, meanwhile, I want suggestions for best Switch games that don't cost $60.
Welcome to the Discomfort Zone. We are the Casual Fanatics, and this is the podcast where we get ourselves a little uncomfortable just for you. So I really hope you appreciate it. I am Paul Stadden. That is Jeremy Brazell. That is Sydnee Johnson. And we are going to talk about some interesting properties this week. This is a weird one. I'm really looking forward to this. The whole thing about the Discomfort Zone is not necessarily that we try to torture ourselves with stuff that we hate, although that does happen every now and again. It kind of happened this week for some of us. But the thing is, we want to get pushed out of our comfort zones so that we can discover new, interesting things and figure out why the things that we hate are interesting to other people. I'm not going to lie to you guys. This was a hard week. This was a hard one to do this week. How did you guys feel about your challenges?
The only thing that got me through it was really short. But since it was really short, I had to put myself through it more than once.
Well, since Jeremy, we rarely ever start with you, and I really, really, really want to hear from you about this.
Oh, God. But I want to hear from you.
Oh, don't worry. We'll get to me. Actually, I think it'd be interesting to close. We'll get to me. Well, I actually think it'd be interesting to close with your topic, Sydnee, because I have interesting thoughts on that. But I really am so looking forward to Jeremy share with the viewers what your challenge was.
It's called music.
I've got all the
We need some nice calming music while we talk about this. This is good. It's like elevator music.
It was Bingo the Clown. Isn't that right?
Bingo the Clown.
Bingo. I think you're Bingo the Clown, right?
Oh gosh, don't even start with that.
No,
we could probably recreate
Bingo
the whole
Clown.
thing.
Yeah, we could.
Bingo the Clown. Bingo the Clowno. That's the whole short, by the way.
Bingo the Clowno. You're Bingo the Clown. It's one of those
headphones.
Yeah, it's one of those weird for the sake of being weird type cartoons that try to say it has some deeper meaning. And it's like this psychological thing where you're going throughout. It's like, no, I'm not Bingo the Clown. And you have all these clowns all surrounding him just coming up saying, you're Bingo the Clown. You're Bingo the Clown, right? You're Bingo the Clown. And
well, I'm not.
No, but I'm not. Then at the end, after all that social pressure, he gives in. He's like, I am Bingo the Clown. He starts dancing and jingling the whatever rattler he has in his hand, and it's just that I see the message. I see the message is trying to say, it's like all these social pressures telling you you're something that you're actually not, and blah blah blah. At least that's the message I got out of it. But I don't know. Like the animation was not very smooth. Like, of course, that it wasn't like a high end. Go ahead.
Well, the history of this lesser Kafka fart that is called Bingo the Clown is that it was created basically to show off what the animation software Maya could do. And keep in mind that this was also 15, nearing on 20 years ago. So what, CG animation software was like at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's really stilted and weird, and for some reason has become this landmark classic among the esoteric non sequitur crowd that likes this kind of animation.
Yeah, I would like to see why they like it, because you know, it's not a funny weird. I didn't laugh.
No.
Nor did it really leave me unsettled. It wasn't really that creepy. It was like, it was weird. It was weird as heck, but I was more like, I don't get it type of weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like you had one clown. It was a girl. She walked up and she just had these balloons that keep blowing up and pop, blowing up and pop. It's like, does that have any extra meaning? I don't know. But it's like there's several other things like it that I've seen that do it so much better. It's like one of my favorite examples would be going back to the Rejected cartoons by Don Hertzfeldt. Those were incredibly weird little cartoons, fairly poorly drawn. You know, like the whole concept behind it was the Learning Channel approached Don Hertzfeldt, who is well known to being anti-commercialism. So he's like, "Oh, you want me to make animated shorts for commercials for your channel? Okay, here you go." So he did little things where it's like just a guy at a table holding a giant spoon. He was like, "My spoon is too big." It was like
good absurdist.
Yeah, it's like this absolute absurdity. It's like you're asking me to do something that I'm clearly against. Did you look up who I was before you approached me? Type thing.
Yeah.
Now these are like classics I could get behind because it's weird, and at the same time it's weird. It's also hilarious.
Which makes me wonder: have you ever heard of Bill Plimpton?
I have not.
Oh my gosh, Jeremy! If you like strange, absurdist animation, there is no. But Bill Plimpton is everything that Chris Landreth with Bingo the Clown wishes he were. You will recognize it immediately. Bill Plimpton was played a lot on MTV in the early 90s. Very strange, sketchy animation style. They showed a lot of his shorts kind of in between shows on MTV. Weirdly, like hyper violent but cute. It's hard to really describe with words.
So,
yeah, you'd like it. You'd like it too.
What is it called?
Sounds right up my alley.
Well, like it had these.
What was that cute animal? What was
it's
that?
not Happy Tree Friends. It's not Happy Tree Friends.
Yeah, you know exactly what I was thinking.
I know you're going with this, but like Bill, like he has these weird things. Like these two guys would come up to each other, and this was a common like interstitial, like 1 minute at most in between shows. These two guys would oppose each other, and weird things would happen when they came. Like the one guy, they would start just like mashing their mouths together to the point where the tops of their heads would just fly off. There was another one where there's like the one nostril of the one dude would open, they start sucking, and the other dude's nostril would open more and start sucking, and the other dude would suck, and then he just suck the other dude into his nostril completely. And that's it. That's the whole short.
That's a lot like Don Hertzfeldt. I see what you're saying. Yeah, very much like.
But that's fun absurdist. I'm trying to figure out. I've been trying to figure out. Actually, I had to look it up. Bingo the Clown came out in 1998. Is 22 years old. People have had 22 years to explain what the hell this is supposed to be, and I've yet to hear a good explanation. What are you doing? What are you doing with this? I don't understand.
Yeah. Well, it's like even on the creepy end of things, there's something that's considerably better when it comes to just a strange weirdness and just unsettling. That would be Salad Fingers.
Oh my gosh, Mr. Salad Fingers. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Salad Fingers is just this creepy looking character out in this desolate farm, and he talks real soft and gentle, and talks about the war. You don't really know which war. We're assuming it's World War One, and his brother went off to war, and he just wants a family, and all these little creepy things happen.
I want to rub the rusty spoons with my fingers.
And you just hear like the beginning of what is the sound stuff? MSR or whatever.
Oh yeah,
it
the
is.
ASMR.
ASMR, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Beginning of that with the rubbing of the spoon and stuff like
Perfect
that.
binaural sound just pumped in your ears of rubbing a rusty spoon, and that's the kind of absurdist that's
It is
great.
not the
I mean,
good kind of ASMR.
it's not. That's
yeah. It was pretty.
consult
creepy,
a doctor if that's your ASMR.
Hey, leave people alone.
But no, that's the fun absurdist. You know, Mr. Salad Finger is just a normal animation. What tarantula hawks are to normal bugs. But I really, with Bingo the Clown. Okay, so like I had to look up. It got acclaim at the Sundance Film Festival, the Ottawa International Animation Festival, Toronto's CFC Worldwide Short Film Festival. Received critical acclaim upon its release. Landreth did not submit Bingo to the Sundance Film Festival, but festival organizers asked to show it anyway. What
Wow.
in the actual hell?
I also just looked up tarantula hawks, and they're absurd looking.
Yes. Was I not right?
No, you're correct. You're
they're
absolutely
terrifying.
correct.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Bingo the Clown is to normal animation what bot flies are to other bugs. Yeah. Feel free to
I
Google
know what
pictures of
those
that.
are.
Yeah, you worked with horses, you know.
Ew.
That's Bingo the Clown. Not interesting or cool or kind of neat or like terrifying, but just what the hell?
There is a thing, like, I know.
Well, I wasn't even like, what the hell? I'm like,
Hang on. Because there is a thing. As a total, like, aside that is gonna weirdly wrap back into this. So the other day, like, it was, like, rainy, and I have a big sliding glass door that leads out to my balcony. And I was sitting on my couch, and, like, the side of my couch faces the sliding glass door. And I'm watching, and we're in Florida, we have termite swarmers, and there were swarmy termites around. Not a ton, but a couple. And you have spider friends that hang out on the balcony because it's a balcony in Florida. And I'm watching, I have this big cream-colored chair cushion, and I'm watching, there's a spider, like a little jumping spider, and a little, like, termite swarmer, both on the cushion. And they were a good distance away from each other. I'm like, how is this going to end? I get very involved with this whole interaction.
Good drama. All right.
This whole drama between this spider and this swarming termite. And I have never seen a spider grab and devour a termite before the other day, but it is a thing that they will do. And I don't mean catch it in its web. This spider stalked and attacked this termite.
Oh, spiders. We didn't need any more reason to be terrified of you. But thank you for...
But now also you can stay because termites are not friends. So,
not.
You know, we live in houses, and houses are made of wood. So
this is like World War II stuff here. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Like, that spider is Stalin. Like, this doesn't feel right. This is not good.
But here's the thing, like, there's something, like, oddly creepy and terrifying, but also interesting about, like, weird shit like this. And that's kind of how I feel like that's what you're going for. You're looking for that kind of creepy, weird, but that was fascinating.
Yeah.
That's salad fingers. That's don't hug me, I'm scared. You know, that's another great example. It's not an animation, it's puppets, but it is so oddly weird. It's like designed to look like a children's puppet show, like Sesame Street, and they go into all these lessons, but all these lessons end up having this twisted stint that is like this ultra commercialist feel, and it's like definitely very anti-commercialism and stuff like that. But
I don't know about this one.
That's fast.
Oh, you don't know? Oh gosh, no.
You found a gap in my knowledge.
Yeah, here. Don't hug me, I'm scared. You definitely have to watch.
Well, I'm gonna look this up. I need to know this.
Wonderful.
Now. You have to watch Bill Plimpton, and I'll watch Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared.
Yeah, perfect.
So, have you found any redeeming qualities with Bingo the Clown? I couldn't find any, so I'm just curious.
Yeah. I don't think there are.
No. Like, I don't get
you're
it.
offended. Like, he's offended I asked the question. Like, no. What did you even ask that for?
So put off.
Ugh. Don't ask that question.
No. Why would you ask me that?
I do, since we've gone really far into this now, without a real explanation of what the short is.
Oh God.
The film opens with a brief live-action video sequence, but the thing that really matters is there's a computer-animated character, a man named Dave, sitting on a chair under a spotlight surrounded by
Did
darkness.
they say his name?
Probably
I don't
not.
think they ever say his name in that entire thing. How do we know his name is Dave?
His name matters less than the names of the characters in Jurassic World, okay? Far less. A clown enters smoking a cigarette and addresses Dave as Bingo. Now, there's a lot of plot after this, but I'm going to try to be as succinct as I can. People keep calling Dave Bingo. That's the whole thing.
They keep calling him Bingo until he accepts the fact that he is Bingo.
I think it's more the only reason he has a name is really to make the point that that's not his name. Like that seems more.
But they don't say it at all. It's in the credits. Like they don't say his name is Dave. He's not like, "Hi, I'm Dave. I'm going to sit here and wait for somebody to come by." No, it's just a dude sitting there. Which, first off, I have never sat.
Why are you finding this weird?
Like, I'm an animation. Like, I love animation. There was a point where I was just trying to find all the animation I could. Like Yuri Norstein's Tale of Tales is supposed to be the greatest animated thing of all time. It's good, and his animation techniques are incredible because he paints on glass, and it's really, really beautiful looking. It's weird to watch, but it's just I was just in this kick of like I'm trying to find the greatest animation stuff of all time, and this
Did you
came
go
up.
through a lot of? Yeah. Did you do a lot of rotoscope stuff as well?
Oh yeah, well there's you have the weird rotoscope, and interestingly enough, the original Prince of Persia game was all rotoscoped. And there was the actually a really, really cool early animation. One of the first feature-length animated things was Prince Ahmed by Lot Reiniger, and it's silhouette animation. So it's all like you're just seeing shadows. It's almost like really, really intricate shadow puppets, but it's all really cool. Just hand-cut paper. And that was like 1920, I want to say she did that.
So that was the inspiration for South Park?
Well, maybe. Still a good old, yeah. Back when they were still actually doing construction paper instead of just computer generating it. But all the greatest animation stuff. It also made me realize something. Stuff that's considered the greatest is really bad. It is. The more awards that are lauded on something, the less it's going to be enjoyable. It's not going to be fun. It's like watching Citizen Kane. Like Citizen Kane is great. But you're not going to sit down with a bucket of popcorn and some friends and watch Citizen Kane, I think that you have these two spectrums, and really, it's a circle. You have the stuff that's really good and enjoyable at the top of the circle, but when you get down to the bottom, this is where the stuff that's great but unwatchable and terribly made are almost at the same point.
Yeah.
A razor-thin margin.
Razor-thin margin between Citizen Kane and Plan 9 from Outer Space. Because really, they're both pretty boring for different reasons.
Yeah.
I mean,
Manos, the hand of fate.
Yes.
I can't outright argue with you.
It feels wrong, but really try to dispute it.
So wrong, but I don't actually know that. I don't know. I gotta go do testing on that one.
Yeah, right?
I need to go test something.
And then you have.
Please submit your best and worst of everything so that we can test this.
Yeah.
Okay. So Red Letter Media has the best of the worst. Right. We could do the best and the worst.
I feel like it would be like
we
really
should do the best and the worst.
Which is less watchable? Which would you rather
That'd
watch
be exactly.
less?
Yeah. So we'd call it the best and the worst. So
we gotta narrow
something
it
that's
down
considered
to,
the best.
Type
watch something
of property,
that's one of the worst.
Genre, you gotta get things that are pretty close.
Yeah.
What is the?
For sure.
Yeah.
If The Godfather was the best, what is the worst mob movie? Let's watch those side by side.
Well, that'd probably be The Godson with Marlon Brando and Matthew Broderick. And Marlon
What?
Brando. Yeah, this came out.
I didn't know this existed.
Oh, this came out. Wait a second. No, I'm sorry. The Godson. That had Christopher McDonald from Kids in the Hall.
No, you're right though, because I see how this works. Analyze This is right in the middle.
Yes.
Oh, I love that movie so much.
It's a movie.
That was great because it was very entertaining too.
Okay, Analyze This is the Sprite of movies. You'll never turn it down. It's always acceptable.
Shut up, I love
it. If there's nothing else, hey, sure, all right.
Analyze This
Sprite
is
and
great.
Analyze This. That's fine.
But it's right on the middle of the spectrum between The Godfather and The Godson.
Yes, it's exactly
it's
right
the
there.
Cheesy popcorn French of mob movies.
Right. Actually, I think the movie I'm thinking of is called The Freshman.
Whatever.
But there's a movie that has Matthew Broderick and Marlon Brando in it, and Marlon Brando reprising his Godfather-like role. Just towards the end of his career when he was doing. Oh yeah. Oh gosh, when he was just doing absolute garbage whenever he felt like it.
Was this before or after The Island of Dr.
Before. This is about 1990. Island of Dr. Moreau was the absolute solidification of the end of Marlon Brando as being anything close to respectable.
Exactly.
Fascinating. And I would rather watch The Island of Dr. Moreau 10 times in a row than watch Bingo the Clown one more time. It's that. Because Bingo the Clown, it insults me. Because
you're animation geekdom.
I adore great animation, and this thing that was just pooped out with Maya animation software, and it's because it feels like one of those things that you can't insult, and I hate things like this. Whenever you're not allowed to insult something
you're not allowed
great,
to not like it.
You're not allowed to not like it. Oh, no, this is great. It's why don't I understand this? Well, because it's great.
Because
well,
it's
why
great
is this?
And you don't get it.
If it's boring and stupid, it's boring and stupid. And that's what Bingo the Clown is. It's boring and stupid. In 6 minutes, you get bored.
Feels this way about I'm gonna mispronounce this because I always do. Neon Genesis Evangelion, the anime.
Yeah.
She feels exactly that way about it. She's like, it's not that deep and it's really unwatchable. And everyone thinks it's amazing and you're not allowed to not like it.
It's supposed to be great.
I actually
not that great.
I love it. Well, except for the end. Nobody likes the end.
Nobody likes the end.
Nobody likes the ending, at least of the original. Some people like the remade ending, but I don't like I think they're pretty bad. But.
My thing with Neon Genesis Evangelion is that the animators put in all of this Christian iconography, and they weren't doing it to be deep. They just thought it looked cool.
Everyone thinks it's deep.
And it's not. And that's it's not like it's offending me as a Christian or something. It's just like if you're going to put something in there, but then not use any of the reference of what that means, then there's no point in being there.
I'm not going to let myself go on a tangent about this, even though I could, because I know someone who writes from a theological perspective a lot of times, and she takes theological themes in her writing.
Right.
And if you were going to use things like that, there's so much meaning and symbolism there and so much to play with as a writer.
Right.
Like, use it. Use it in a way that makes sense.
Yes. You're just leaving so much interesting stuff on the table. It's like if you had a world where every background character was this interesting looking superhero and you're focusing on a dude with a desk job. Like there's somebody who flies in and just says, yeah, I just saved the world from a tsunami and flies away. But we're going to watch Tom do his little TPS reports.
That's a really interesting concept.
I was just thinking the same thing. It's like, I might actually watch that.
Watch that shit.
Well, actually, I did do a Reddit writing prompt one time, which was, you're the only person in a world of superheroes that doesn't have superpowers, and they're all really jealous of you. And I wanted to see where people would take that. And everything was like, oh, so you just stayed here in your office, Tom? Didn't have to go rescue any people falling from buildings? What was it like being able to take a coffee break, Tom? And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. I didn't, like, it's not my fault. I can't fly.
But what's interesting is, like, if everyone has superpowers, why are they, like, falling out of buildings needing to get saved? I guess there's
the guy with X-ray vision, the guy with X-ray vision, he didn't know he was just tumbling out of a window. So...
Yeah, he just thought he was looking through a wall,
Right. It's like, as you can see over here, I'm looking at whoa. So
Anyway,
all this to say that Bingo the Clown sucks. So it's just terrible.
It's 2 thumbs down.
No, way more than that. I feel
didn't
like
subject myself to this, so I don't feel like I get a vote, but I feel like my vote would be no.
I feel like going and subjecting myself to some radiation to grow some extra thumbs just so I can point them down. I hate this that much. Because, again, it's the thing where if you insult it, people will say you don't get it, which makes it uninsultable. And just because you don't like it means you don't get it. Anything like that, I immediately want to tear down. I hate that garbage. If something's terrible, you should be able to say it.
Yeah, if something's terrible, you should be able to say it. If something's great and somebody doesn't get it, you should be able to explain it.
Right. I have yet to see an explanation of this.
And I do have a problem with that I have a problem with the concept you're talking about on the level of, like, if you don't like something, even if it's good, like, I'm going to be blasphemous for a second and be like, I don't like The Godfather. But, like, you're allowed to not be interested in The Godfather. You can think it's a boring movie. I think it's a great movie, but you can think it's a boring movie.
That's okay. You know, and the thing is, there's a difference between not liking something and not appreciating something.
Yeah.
There are movies I appreciate Citizen Kane, what it did for cinematography, of having ceilings in movies for the first time, of these great shots and these long, deep focus shots that it had. Incredible looking movie. It's just boring. So.
Boring. All right.
And that's okay. All right. So Bingo the Clown. Because I want you to go last, Sydney, I'll go next to mine.
Cool.
I'm
looking forward to this.
I had to suffer Jojo's Bizarre Adventure. So I started with the first season because I felt like that was supposed to go.
Can I just say, I'm really sad to hear this because I really actually thought you were going to I did not challenge you to this to be like, let me torture Paul.
No, I get that. And I get that entirely. And there are parts of it that I actually do enjoy of this. I do think that the stylized, like, individual frames of this are beautiful to look at. When they have these really cool organic poses that have so much tension and energy in them, it's an incredibly well drawn thing in that respect. And I do like Japanese animation when they kind of take like these Greek poses. The faces, it's set in England. The particular season that I'm watching is season 1. And it's all about this battle between the Joestar family and this immortal vampire Dio Brando, which, by the way, I was super excited that they named the main villain after my favorite singer of all time, Ronnie James Dio.
That keeps going. The longer you watch it, like, it doesn't go away.
I know. So, but how do I describe this show? The melodrama. This is like a radio play that they decided to animate because everybody at all times is saying whatever's happening on screen constantly. And if there's no reason for it, it's still going to happen. It's like they have a play-by-play commentator. Like, there are literally the character. Okay, the introduction of the following character that I'm going to mention made me pause it and stare off into space. I was so disappointed. The character, Robert E.O. Speedwagon. His name is REO Speedwagon, the 70s rock band. Of all the rock bands they could pick, not Alice Cooper, an actual name, not something that makes sense, like Jefferson Airplane, REO Speedwagon, but no, we can't leave it there. The first R stands for Robert.
And that's why I love the show.
I paused it at that point and just
You do, Jeremy?
for 5 minutes. 5 minutes, I was just. I would go to hit play and just be like, no, I need another minute. Just, I get it. Robert E.O. Speedwagon. And Jojo keeps shouting, like, Speedwagon, come help me. It's the goofiest thing. So, and the thing is that, like, there's all these asides, like, in their heads of, like, okay, like the beginning of the second episode, for some reason, this is one of those shows where this time just jumps around too weirdly. Like, they spend 9 hours on 1 minute of something, and then they'll just skip through years of people's lives, not even acknowledging that they happened. Like, the first episode deals with the entirety of Dio Brando's childhood and his father and coming to live with the Joestar family and the whole rivalry developing, and Dio kills Jojo's dog. What in the actual hell? And how Jojo's I was thinking that the whole season was going to be about Jojo like having to start to build himself up and prove himself, because he talks in that first episode, one day I'll be strong enough to be able to fight for a woman's honor. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a thing. Second episode, they're adults. No.
It had to get you up to speed.
But it didn't. It skipped like a decade of important stuff. Because then, like, outwardly, Dio and Jojo are friends. Like, they're just getting along, biding their time, which would have been really interesting to see how that developed, but that's not important. And then,
you also have to, like, and it's hard to note it, like, it's hard to realize this in the beginning, because, like, I was just told to watch it by a friend who was like, right. You need to watch this, and they were right.
Me too!
But, like, the thing is, you don't understand in the first few episodes the scope of the series.
Right. Because
when you start to understand it's, like, following multiple generations,
right.
Then that first, like, little episode doesn't bother you so much, because you're like, oh, I get what we're doing now.
Oh, we have centuries to cover here, so I get why you're kind of skipping
I get why that whole thing happened in one episode.
And I get that, but considering that Dragon Ball Z took place over a week across 6 seasons, I think they could maybe explain a little more.
Dude, there was a half a season that took place over 40 minutes.
Like, yeah, like literally about an hour.
Yeah, the whole tournament takes place within like a 40-minute span, if I remember correctly.
For people who think that the show 24 is a little long in the tooth with its time frames.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so this effing show, I know, I'm sorry.
You're like not even.
I'm sorry, I know.
I'm so sad.
So okay, so I gotta talk about it more, but then like, okay, so Jojo is he goes to find this poison that, you know, because Dio poisoned his father, and of course the accusations are all leveled with that wonderful anime hand, and the flashing background. This show does flashing backgrounds. There was a point where Dio and Jojo were fighting in a chimney, and they fell in the chimney and had long monologues to each other. And the only thing I could think of as they were falling was, I fell for over 30 minutes. So,
do you know what my thought
Time is a loose construct in this show.
Very. Like, and you were going to be my brother. Well, you tried to poison my father. I'm like, should they have hit the ground by now? Like, it's been like an hour. So, you know, and of course, thankfully, Robert E.O. Speedwagon was there explaining to the audience what they were already seeing. It seems that Jojo and Dio are locked. Like, yeah, Robert, I see it. I'm looking at the same thing you are, okay? You're making this last twice as long. So.
Because for so many people, that absolute absurdity is what just makes the show.
It makes the show.
I was trying to get that a little bit, but now Jojo has his
the absurdity and like the drama of the graphical style, like it just works, dude. Like
it's so melodramatic. It is such a soap opera.
But you know what you're getting when you watch it. Like,
it's true.
I'm pretty sure it comes with an epilepsy warning, but
yeah, I'll tell you, the character that I have really started to like is the guy who's training Jojo. I keep wanting to call him Zamboni. I know that's not his name.
Oh yeah, I love him. I love him.
And you must defeat them while holding this glass of wine, and you must not spill a single drop, or I shall never teach you again.
I love how
everything is so dramatic with everybody. Like, they have to go back. I have to take a crap now. Like, it's just this. Everything is just the height of what drama can possibly be. And it's just, and there's this one point where during a fight, Zamboni or Zapoli or whatever his name is explaining to Jojo, think about a mite on your skin, many times smaller than a human, and he's trying to suck your blood. Does he feel fear? No, he does not feel fear. But think about this being you're facing now. The guys should have stabbed you like 5 times by now. You're explaining all this to Jojo. He's right over there. And I'm like, the time just, but it's not just an aside in your mind because you're talking to Jojo and this. So the villains are nice. They're just waiting around letting you explain stuff. They're the nicest villains ever. It's incredible. A lot of fair play. A lot of rules of fair play in this. But then to be fair, Robert E.O. Speedwagon was going to shank the crap out of Jojo until Jojo showed him enough gumption that they became friends. Like,
yeah, that's how shows like this work. You know, it's like if your best friend hadn't tried to stab you before that, how are you really best friends? You know?
I'm just waiting for a character, Mr. Benjamin Lack Sabbath, or Mr. Leonard Ed Zeppelin.
It'll probably happen.
Probably. More 70s band names. Mr. Philip Ink Floyd. So overall, with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I'm just not to the point yet where I appreciate the absurdity of it and the melodrama of it, because stuff just keeps happening in this show, and I keep saying, "Oh Lord, just just move on from this." Jojo, no, I don't need another explanation about your inner monologue and motivations. Just shoot the guy or not. You shoot him. Shoot him. Why are you arguing? He's turning into a vampire now. It seems that his skin is transforming. Yes, I get it. Thank you. I see that. Yes, I appreciate this. So I want to appreciate this. And there are things about it I do appreciate. I have yet to see a show this energetic and with a villain that is as hateable as Dio.
He's very hateable.
Which makes me sad because his name comes from Ronnie James Dio. I want to like him. I want to so badly. We're named after the best rock singer in the world. Over here on my side, I have to deal with the Bobby E.O. Speedwagon. I don't want him on my side. I want Dio. So,
Bobby, get out. Get out of here,
we don't need you. And your razor hat that you took 5 minutes to explain before you threw it into JoJo's arm. Just so much explanation. I feel like the Wikipedia summary is just a transcript of the show. Like, this is what it is.
Hey, there's a whole wiki. Like,
I know there is. There's a whole subreddit on this that keeps getting to the front page on Reddit. This is huge. Like,
it's a great show. I challenged you to it really because, like, I know you're generally not an anime person,
right?
And I actually really hoped that you would appreciate the animation.
Here's the thing.
Enjoy the show.
Well, here's the thing. This is kind of typifying what we were just talking about, the difference between appreciating and liking. I actually really appreciate what the show is trying to do. It's making It's making fun of melodrama, and it's really doing it in a fun, over-the-top way, in some way that only anime can do. And you have these vampires and all that. It's like a soap opera if soap opera could have the budget to show the kind of things that this is showing. So I appreciate it from an artistic achievement standpoint. Aside from the Robert E.O. Speedwagon, that name can just go right to hell. But the rest of it is absolutely fascinating. What they're doing with the melodrama, with the over the top, and really trying to make it as extreme as it possibly can be, and the poses and the you or my brother. So
I think the animation is gorgeous in this show.
It is.
I love the animation.
It's really interestingly drawn and composed. All the poses are really cool and full of power. Whoever was in charge of the composition of shots, it really did an amazing job because you can really manipulate the backgrounds. You can, and I get that there is a comedy aspect to like falling for half an hour, fighting with each other. Obviously, you would hit the ground 10 minutes ago. I get that. I'm not to the point where I like it yet. I'm at the point where I appreciate it, but I'm not at the point where I like it.
Are you going to keep watching though?
I am going to try. It now has me invested in the melodrama.
How far are you into it, for starters?
Probably about 5 or 6 episodes, I want to say.
Okay, keep going. Keep
Yeah.
It gets better after that first little segment. To me, it got better
right
as you start.
So this is kind of like Psych was to me, whereas like I didn't really like it, but I kept watching it afterwards anyway.
Right. It's one of those things where I want to know, it's one of those things that's really hot culturally right now. So I feel like, okay, I kind of got to get this. I'm glad you challenged me to it. I'm not yet to the point where I understand why people really like it, but I appreciate what it is and I appreciate the achievement that it is. Also, this is going to sound weird, but I do like anime where I can remember the names because foreign names are hard. This is one of the things that makes watching a foreign film difficult when people aren't just named Charles or Steve or something that you can just kind of easily grasp and be like, okay, that's a name that I know. And it's a problem for me, and I would like to get better at that. But when something is in English and they're using English names, it does make it a lot easier. An anime I've also really latched onto right now is BNA, Brand New Animal, because I was watching these back and forth, and they actually on Netflix. It's brand new. It just came out on Netflix.
Is it a Netflix anime?
I think it's one of those in collaboration with. Maybe they bought the rights to it. I think BNA already existed and they just slapped their name onto it. But I've been watching them back and forth, and it's interesting. They're both doing a really good job with the posing and the characters, of the actual motion of the characters. This has long been a problem for me in anime. I don't like the whole going chibi thing. Like, I love Black Butler, but the going chibi, or however it's pronounced, and they get the big white pupils and that open mouth thing. I'm like, okay, just don't stop that. No, I don't want to see that.
I don't like that either.
I don't get that weird stylization, and neither of these shows are doing this. What JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is doing, which is really hard to do, is really good at capturing a foreign culture. For the Japanese to capture English culture, and I thought that this was also a really good thing that Katsuhiro Otomo did with Steam Boy, was he really captured English culture very well. And JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is also doing that. So I appreciate that also. Whenever somebody can really capture really well a culture that's not the same as theirs and very foreign. Japanese and English culture, incredibly foreign, but the Japanese also have a bit of a history of being somewhat Anglophile from the early 20th century. So some of that culture is kind of seeped in, but it's really interesting to watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and see that Japanese take on British melodrama, like it's Dark Shadows or something. So right. So yeah. So I mean, I'm going to keep watching it because I want to appreciate it and I want to get it. And I want to see why people like it, but it's a hard thing to get through. I will admit it's a hard thing to get through.
I will say get into where you start to see the next generation, and once you start to see the expanse that the show covers, it does sort of start to come together. Those first couple of episodes are a little bit. It's such a weird introduction into the world that they're trying to show you.
Yeah, and if you're not expecting the kind of melodrama that you're in for, it is strange. Because you have to get used to that. You have to go in expecting it to be like a radio play. Because literally there are points where I wasn't looking at what was going on and I was following it just fine.
You're fine.
I was like, oh, which character's stabbing who? Oh, right, good. Thank you for telling me, Mr. EO Speedwagon. Cool, got it. I am not going to let that name go, by the way. That is just unforgivable. Okay, so that was my experience with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. We've had so far 2 cartoons that we've been discussing today. One unforgivably bad and one just strange. And now we get to something that's going to make a lot of you mad, is a discussion about, what is this? This is supposed to be the greatest RPG of the modern era. I'm not sure how to explain. What did you have this week, Sydnee?
I decided to talk about Skyrim, and you guys didn't directly challenge me to this. I actually didn't have time to get to the challenge that I was posed. But I've been wanting to talk about this for a while, and I was hoping one of you would challenge me to it because I hate Skyrim.
And How do you do this when everybody else is supposed to love it?
I don't know. Like, everybody loves this game, and I've been a video gamer since I was about 5 years old, and I've been playing RPGs since I discovered what they were as a child. And I went in, and Skyrim is exactly like right up my alley. I should have loved it.
Right.
I bought it when it came out, thinking like, okay, like this is right up my alley. It's a medieval fantasy RPG, huge open world, all these things. And my only experience with Elder Scrolls prior to that was like I'd played a little bit of I want to say it was Morrowind. But not enough matter. I like played it at a friend's house. Right. Of course, like Skyrim was quite a bit later. I was like, okay, well, like, and Morrowind had this problem too. Like all the Elder Scrolls games play very much like PC games, which is a thing that I'm just not a fan of.
Well, it all came. I mean, it's very much from.
They are PC games out there.
They are, and I'm just not a fan. So when Skyrim came out on console, and they had made like this concerted effort to like give it a third-person view and make it play a little more like a console game, I was like, okay, let's see, because this should be right up my alley. And I later like proved myself wrong, because there are a couple of RPGs that I deeply love that do play very much like PC games. The chief among them probably being Dragon Age Origins, which plays very PC-esque.
Mm-hmm.
Because like BioWare has their origins back in
PC gaming,
PC as well, like Baldur's Gate, things like that. So
oddly enough, though, like doesn't bother me at all when I'm playing Dragon Age. Skyrim, just
Can I take a gander right quick as to one reason why you love Dragon Age, but you don't like Skyrim?
You can try, but I got more to talk about. But go on.
Well, of course. Like, because it's an interesting thing because Skyrim story, like, it has a ton of great lore, but the story. Okay,
we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
All right.
Stop cracking my thoughts.
Gotcha.
But my problem with Skyrim is my problem that I'm having with look, nobody in gaming is on my good list right now. I'm just going to come out and say it. There's no faction making brilliant video games that I'm in love with right now. Unfortunately. But I will say this is a strictly like Western RPG problem, like specifically, US-esque RPGs, where the worlds are getting too big.
Oh, yeah.
The worlds are getting too big. They're getting unwieldy. And the problem that I have with this is games like Skyrim have presented this like epitome of an idea where like, oh, the world is this large. And I'm like, okay, but it's a boring world and it's not fun to play in. My problem with Skyrim very quickly became exactly what Jeremy was about to hit on, which is that the main story is basically like there if you want to follow it, but
yeah,
if you're as ADHD as I am, you will be distracted by so many.
But it's not like The Witcher 3 where every side mission is an interesting moral quandary.
No. And add something to the story and to a lesser extent the world. Like, there are little side quests in Witcher 3 that, like, if you like go rescue this little village, there will be like merchants there later and it'll be nice. Otherwise it's like taken over by monsters. And like those are odd little touches that I love. Like, I love that my choices affect the environment. And it's just enough like feedback for me.
Right.
Whereas Skyrim, I don't feel like anything I did mattered. And not only did nothing I did matter, but also, which is a running theme with me apparently, but also like the quests that you end up on like very early in the game, even I probably only logged like maybe 10-ish hours in Skyrim. Like I didn't last long.
Plenty of time to know you wouldn't like the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've tried it more than once. Like I've come back like maybe I was wrong. I was not wrong. The problem that I had though is that like you'll like, oh look, if you're like me and you grew up on RPGs, oh look, a little side quest to go do. Like let's go take care of that real quick before we get on with the story, because it might not be here later. We don't know. And like you do that, and that side quest would take you halfway across the world to like go get a loaf of bread with no real reward at the end of it.
No.
Like,
Yeah,
I remember
the journey can't
going
be
like
too
across a continent for something stupid.
Yeah, that's too much. There is a point where the size of these worlds is literally becoming a problem, even with fast travel. And I remember in Far Cry 2 when you could get on a bus, and like that was huge. So
I have a problem with fast travel also.
oh, you do?
I have a deep abiding problem with fast travel in video games, actually.
Really?
I understand, like, look, there are some universes that need it. There are some worlds where you just need it to effectively play the game, and I totally understand that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying get rid of all fast travel, but I hate fast travel because I am the type of gamer that will try and avoid using it. Unless I need to, because I feel like the world is there to be experienced.
Right.
I don't want to be teleporting all over the world that you've created in order to get things done, because it is required. Now, every now and then, like, yes, I don't feel like riding all the way across the world of Witcher 3 to go get this thing that I need in one town. In general, I feel like the world is there to be experienced. Otherwise, why am I playing a video game?
Well, it's like Skyrim is a great example of that, because you can ride horses in the game. But what's the point of being able to ride a horse if you can go from point A to point B through a fast travel of it? Some people say, oh, you can't fast travel there until you've been there. But the thing is, you're going to find someplace really close by where you're trying to go, fast travel there, and then just run over a mountain after that, you know?
Right, and you've made it irrelevant. By the way, the terrain in these games is another thing that bugs me. The terrain does not behave, this is going to sound bizarre, but in the way that I expect terrain to behave in a video game.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
you can't just run over a mountain.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
No, you can literally
I hate that. I like that's the thing. It's like you're just taking advantage of the bad engine that it's built on, because there isn't really climbing in the game, but I can almost run straight up that mountain.
You can.
Because I can find, as long as I find that little crease right there, I can run up that crease, even though that crease is every bit as steep as these ledges over here. So
this reminds me of something that a friend of mine told me back when he used to do level design in the build engine games like Duke Nukem 3D, Blood, and those kind of games. And he noticed something interesting about the engine was that the ramps that you walk up can be any angle you want, and your character will still walk up them. So he created buildings that had 179-degree angles, or like 89-degree angles, excuse me. Like it's like almost 90 degrees, and your character will walk up and just boop and just teleport right to the top of the building because it's just this perfect ramp.
That's amazing.
So we never really got past that, apparently. Apparently Skyrim still just like an old build engine game. That's fantastic.
And it's one of the things that, once again, like, I'm playing a video game to experience the world, and it deeply bugs me. Like, and look, had the story been great, I probably would have gotten past it. It's not. It's barely there. You can forget that there is a main quest.
That really is a problem.
And I did.
It's like, okay, like to compare it to Witcher again, it's like you were talking about there's like side stories that can affect the whole entire world. It's like you have a major side story in Skyrim where you choose side in the Civil War, and you get to choose who's the Civil War. But after you win that Civil War, there isn't really much else to it other than, oh, these guys won, and now they're allies with you.
Right.
And it doesn't feel
as dramatic.
A big thing. It doesn't feel like you won anything, you know?
If there's no main
I don't care.
For that too, and I know there is a main quest, but like, if it doesn't significantly tie back into the main quest, then why does it matter? I have this real deep abiding hatred for games that, like, I can just go fart around and do whatever I want and never continue. Like, I'm here to see a story, guys.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like, once again, the difference between like a very similar, not quite, but similar-ish playstyle of a game in Dragon Age Origins, the story is what drives you through that entire game. So it leaves room for a lot of forgiveness of, like, the fact that the menus are really tiny on a big screen TV on a PlayStation. You know,
because it's
like,
a PC game, yeah.
Because it's a PC game and you're meant to play it like this. But, like, I will forgive that because the story is so good and because the interactions with the characters are so good. That's another thing. I didn't get any of that in Skyrim. I didn't care about any of these characters. It doesn't matter. Maybe that's just me.
Well,
but
no, you're right.
No emotional investment whatsoever in this game.
I feel like, when you have games like Fallout 3 where you have like a father who is killed and you have to avenge him, although streams, or you have to go find your son or something like that, and the whole time you can fart around like on your little video games on your wristwatch. But there's a driving force through the game. Point being, there's a driving force through it that even with all the side missions and side quests, you still have something in mind. There's this goal that you're going to, and characters remind you about, and which is why I think Final Fantasy VII sticks with you so well, because everything has to do with this world and what it's doing to affect you and your life and the world that you're moving through. And there's also a linearity to something like that we've lost the idea that linearity is good. And this is a problem because we did it was not just, and I always get frustrated with this when something that was done because of graphical limitations is lost, and we forget that maybe that was actually good for the plot or the story, that was good for the game and the gamer themselves as well. That's not just a limitation on the hardware, but it's actually doing something that forces the people who create it to be more creative and do more interesting things. When I'm playing BioShock Infinite, it's a great, incredible looking world, but it still funnels you down this path while making you feel like you're in a large open city.
But it does a very good job of not making you feel herded through a...
You don't feel constricted at all.
I don't think there's a series that has mastered the idea of linearity, feeling like you're in an open world space because of how interconnected every single level is, than the Dark Souls series or all the games around it, like Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Demon Souls. Well, Demon Souls less so because it's not interconnected. You go in the hubs, but it's still linear. It has this linear fashion to it. Now you have choices. I could go this direction or this direction. So it doesn't, you get to experience different areas differently. But they funnel you. It's like, guys over here are extremely tough. So you're going to most likely take the easier route. So you take the direction they want you to take. And that makes it a much more focused, much more well-designed game where you get the maximized experience of like, this is what the developer envisioned.
Right. Yeah. And that's a really good way of thinking about it, the Dark Souls method, because it really does, when on the surface, Dark Souls looks like an open world game, but it does a great job of funneling you where you're supposed to go. Oh, you're not leveled up enough? Well, these skeletons are going to kill the crap out of you. You can't go here. Sorry. And it doesn't feel arbitrary like in Fallout, where you're just like, oh, I want to walk over to New Vegas right now. Oh, sorry, bunch of killer hornets. Why? Any plot reason? Nah, just a bunch of killer hornets. Can't go there yet.
Yeah.
But in Dark Souls, everything's just huge and terrifying, and you have to level up against it. In this area, there be giants. Like, that's just what it is.
And if you have the tenacity to go that way, they will let you go that way.
Oh, true.
And I feel like they may have tried this in Skyrim. The problem is they left so much autonomy on the player that, like, literally, I think at one point I got lost and ended up in a cave and I got bit by a vampire. So then I'm like running around trying to figure out how to cure vampirism unless I wanted to stay a vampire. Like, and then I'm like, wait, what were we doing? Like, why am I here in this town? Like,
right.
Well, it's like, what's funny is, like, so much of the story, there's like this urgency. You have to do it. You have to go do this. You have to go see the Greybeards at the top of the mountain now, or the dragons are going to destroy the entirety of Skyrim. 100 hours later, I still haven't gone to see. I haven't even gotten there.
Like,
yeah.
I feel like it's a game. I know this is not how it goes, but I feel like it's a game where, like, if you just did that, that would be the end, but nobody got there.
Right. Yeah. Open world games have a problem with urgency too,
They do, and there's a very specific way you have to urge a player in an open world, and it can be done. I've seen it done, and I'm going to take two examples I really, really am not fond of here, but like where linearity goes bad, like my shining examples are like, first off, FF13. FF13 was the worst example of linearity used in a semi-modern game. It was a bad decision. And that's why I think everybody goes to that and they say, oh, linearity is bad.
Yeah.
Linearity is not necessarily bad. It's linearity that looks like linearity that's bad.
Right. No, that's very fair. Like Cuphead is a good example too, where you go in and you can play individual little levels in this little area, and then once you've beaten enough of those levels and the boss, you can then have like this bridge appear and you go to the next area and do the same thing. So it's linear. It's funneling you along a certain direction, but you can do this chunk however you want, and this chunk however you want, and this chunk however you want.
Another great example is it's one of my favorite game stories in the past couple of years, because like it just like hit home for me quite a bit. But the game Celeste. Celeste is about a game. It's just a platformer where it's about a girl climbing a mountain to overcome, the barriers she's put on herself. So she's climbing this mountain, and it's a very linear game because each level leads to the next. There's no splitting paths or anything, but they give you, it feels like a natural progression, because it's like in Final Fantasy 13, the example you're given, which is the example I was thinking on why a lot of people think linearity is bad. It's because you see this giant world out there, and you
can only move through a tunnel.
There's like why is this road blocked off over here? Why can't I go over that way? All that stuff. So you have, but like this is like you really only have one major path that you can go down this entire time. But it's like you have this wide area, so it's kind of like Sonic the Hedgehog. You have different layers that you can go through.
Right.
Except for a lot of it is vertical rather than going
and the thing is, though, that we do have, this is what gets me, is there are happy medium options. I'll go back to Dragon Age for a second, where it gives you like this opening of you can make the decision of where you want to go next. Now, the progression of each of those areas is going to be what it is based on your decision making.
Right.
However, like it gives you the illusion of you can address any issue you want in any order. Eventually, you got to address them all. But the thing of it is, it gives you the illusion of freedom while also funneling you in a specific way towards the end of the story. But meanwhile, all of those decisions that you're making along the way impact the storyline. So you feel validated as the player in this world.
That's a wonderful way of looking at it. It's the same that people complain about, like shared universes being a problem. No, poorly done shared universes are a problem. Poorly done linearity is always going to be a problem. Just like poorly done open worlds are always going to be a problem. A boring open world is no better than a boring linear game at all.
And and that's the problem that I'm coming to, is so many of these big, ginormous open world games that everybody's like, oh, it has this much space, are boring. I don't want to explore them.
And we've already maxed out. Okay, it's interesting you mentioned the Elder Scrolls series. Elder Scrolls 2, Daggerfall, the game map was the size of Europe.
That's ridiculous.
And
it's time to walk that.
Boring. It's boring as hell because it also is procedurally generated, which is annoying.
But technically, so was Skyrim. It's just after it was procedurally generated, they just went in and handcrafted what was procedurally generated.
Right. So. It's the problem that No Man's Sky faced for a long time until all the patches finally made it a good game. We don't want this huge, empty, boring world. It has to be a crafted world, or else we don't want to spend any time there. Like people would much rather spend time in Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild because it's a fully realized 22 kilometers or whatever the size is of that world, which is a much more interesting space than whatever's going on in Skyrim. Now, there is another problem with Skyrim, the frost giant in the room that we have to discuss, which is the other thing that makes it feel limited. How many people in that game took an arrow to the knee? Every freaking buddy?
I think so.
Nothing makes a game feel smaller than when you have like 8 lines of dialogue for 50 million people. You know, and I know that it's a bit overblown. There's more dialogue in the game than that. But when it feels like 1 out of every 4 people you meet took an arrow to the knee, which is oddly specific, that really shrinks the world down. Because what makes a world feel huge? It's not just that there's stuff, but that there's people.
Diversity of people.
Once again, things that Dragon Age, even in Origins, did brilliantly. And I think Origins probably is still my favorite Dragon Age. Dragon Age Origins did this brilliantly. They really did a very good job of crafting the dialogue. They made the characters interesting. And like my favorite thing about that game is still the party banter and how the conversations change based on who is with you. The party banter in Dragon Age Origins, which came out like pre me going to college, so like 10 years ago plus now. And I was late to the game on that one, is better than the party banter in Final Fantasy 15, which came out like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was shocked. Like I remember hearing like the party in Final Fantasy 15 talk, and it was like, the Dragon Age Origins party banter is way better than this and more hilarious. And like, you will stop and be like, wait, what did they just say?
Right.
Well, what was the dwarf's name?
Repeats so quickly.
Yeah.
That it didn't feel organic.
Yeah. And
go ahead, Jeremy.
Oh no, I was like, what was the dwarf's name in Origins?
Oh, Oghren.
Oghren mixed with Worgen is like, you had some amazing banter with those two.
Zevran and anybody is hilariously uncomfortable, and I'm so happy that exists.
But that's such an achievement, though. You have, this is probably the most difficult thing other than rendering the graphical world, which is coming up with all the dialogue for the world. And
what
having
impresses
all
me,
these paths.
Well, what impresses me about what they did in Dragon Age Origins is not only that they had to come up with this amount of dialogue, it feels organic. Now, there are certain things that are triggered by coming into contact with certain places or areas or objects, but some of it is randomized. I've played through the game 3 or 4 times. Never in one playthrough do I think I've heard repeats.
Wow.
I don't think it repeats at all.
That's
because it's affected by your 3 party members.
Yeah.
It's affected by location, and it's affected by where you are in the game. So there's enough variables on it that it's random, but it's not randomized to where you'll hear repetitiveness.
Right.
It makes it feel absurdly organic.
So I forgot the company who does the games. I don't know why I forgot because they do amazing games. But have you ever played the Divinity games?
No.
Divinity Original Sin and Divinity Original Sin 2 are very much like those games, and the amount of personality each, because you can make an original character or you can make a character that like they designed, and they have each have their own storyline within a larger storyline, and the multiplayer can essentially make you essentially go up against each other eventually, because the whole point of the game is you're raising yourself up to become a god, and eventually it's like, oh gosh, you are my rival at some point. But the way they do all the dialogue trees is very similar to Dragon Age, and I feel like they're carrying the mantle that BioWare has kind of dropped off on.
Yeah,
so it might be something you want to check out.
I may definitely have to check those out. But real quick, and the last thing I was going to say that, like, if we're talking about linearity and open versus open world, like, and another game that you guys know that I couldn't stand was the remake of FF7. And some people were like, oh, you just don't like it because it's linear, and like there was talk of it being presented as an open world game. It definitely is not. It's a very linear game. And my problem with that game, once again, is not that it's linear. I think that linearity is extremely useful in storytelling if it's done correctly. And that wasn't so much my issue with it. Now, do I think it could have felt more open world? Absolutely. But I don't think that the end goal is always open world, because you really do start to lose your storytelling. Because at some point, if I can just walk wherever I want, like, what are we even doing here?
Yeah, you don't know what to do.
You lose sight of any kind of goal. And Witcher 3 towed the line, I felt like there are definitely some areas that are not interesting. Like, there are places you never go. There's blank sections on the map that there's no reason to explore them. And I think if we continue to like push games to be bigger and badder, like, you have to give me a reason to explore.
Well, there's another problem with the making worlds larger and larger, is that pushes game production times really long. Like we'll take Rockstar for example. Let's take a look at the development cycles of each of the just the Grand Theft Auto games. So the first Grand Theft Auto comes out in something like 97. Grand Theft Auto 2 comes out in 99. Grand Theft Auto 3 comes out in 01. Grand Theft Auto Vice City comes out in 02 or 03. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas comes out in 04. Then Grand Theft Auto 4 comes out in 08. Grand Theft Auto 5 comes out in 13. And that was the last Grand Theft Auto game. And they're still working on 6.
Yep.
In fact, 7 years.
Grand Theft Auto 5 is like the first game that is getting a major release on 3 different console generations.
Yeah. They keep updating it because they spent a lot of time on that.
Did you see how the PlayStation 5 presentation opened up?
No.
It opened with Grand Theft Auto 5 coming to PS5. It's like, that's what you wanted to open with? That was 2 generations ago. That came out on the PS3, okay? I'm sorry. I don't care.
I'm excited about it.
We've played it. Anyway, I have it, for Pete's sake. Got it for free on Epic.
I say all this to say that my big problems with Skyrim are the fact that the world feels wooden. It doesn't play very enjoyably, just mechanically. I'm not a fan of the processing. And I know they keep re-releasing it. Like, Skyrim's doing the same thing as Grand Theft Auto 5. It's new. That came in 2011.
2011 is when Skyrim came out.
It's like still $50, I think, by the way.
Yeah. I remember being shocked it was 2003, 2002. I was shocked that Half-Life was still $15. It came out in 1998. Now, 7, 8, 9-year-old games, still $40. Like, Tekken 7 came out in 2013. That's still $40. How are these games still so expensive?
With games like Skyrim, they keep re-releasing it.
Yeah.
And, like, I get it. People like it. I don't like it. People like it. But my problems with the game are, like, it's not an enjoyable engine to play on. It's wooden at best as a world. It's huge, but almost to its detriment.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what's going on half the time. Like, I mean, you can start that game, but God forbid you walk away from it for a few days. You will have no idea where you are.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, what these games engender in terms of kind of making you have to stay in them, stay in that world, is a little bit frustrating. And they're not doing it for a narrative reason. It's almost like a clickbaity, phone game kind of way, where it's just more addicting than it is interesting.
As an adult video game player, like, I'm not a fan, because, like, I have weeks that I told you guys earlier this week, work has been crazy and I don't have time to play video games.
Right.
Yeah, I don't enjoy games that deliberately waste my time anymore.
Yes.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And on a weird note, so Jeremy knows this. We talked about this a couple weeks ago in one of our Lost episodes. But like I've been playing Stardew Valley because I can play it for quick little jaunts and like it's easy to play before you go to bed and things like that. Stardew Valley does something remarkable. I was real late to the party on Stardew Valley. People kept telling me to play it and I didn't. Stardew Valley is remarkable on this level. I'm an ADHD person and the feedback loop in this game. The psychological feedback that you get for everything that you do is so on point. And this is where games like Skyrim to me fail. There is no psychological reward system in that game. I can't find it.
Right.
And when I complete a quest, it's like, here's a loaf of bread. I'm like, what do I need that for?
Thanks.
I just went through this huge cavern. I fought 3 frost trolls. I fought the Daedras. I fought all the toughest things in the game. And what do I find at the end? Yes, leather boots.
That are worse than the ones you're wearing to get through the cavern.
Yeah.
And that was my experience with the reward system in that game. And that doesn't give me what I need psychologically to keep wanting to play it.
No.
Whereas like Stardew Valley, it's like, I can make wine now. Like
right. Well,
and if I like talk to my grapes, they'll make nicer grapes, and then I can make better wine. Like it's just.
I think the story of Stardew Valley is one that these large game developers would really do well to study, because that's the result of one man's ludicrous passion for the Earthbound series, where the dude just sat in his house. His girlfriend worked, paid the bills, and he literally sat at that computer for like 8 hours a day, just plugging away. And he would just test it against people. Like, can you play this for me? Can you tell me what you think of these characters? And he would refine and refine and refine for just a couple of years.
The level that this game goes to for like your ability to customize and everything having a use and being able to be made into better things is insane.
And all the characters in
I was just going to say, the fleshed out characters.
So incredibly charming. It's like, I love all of you.
They're all likable. How do you do that? How do you make a town of likable people? The guy who created Stardew Valley, after it started exploding on Steam, he talked about how he had like $12 million in his bank account because people just kept buying the game, and he was just shocked. And I'm like, no, you shouldn't be shocked. That is the result of that level of attention. I hate the phrase "attention to detail" is overused because people could throw that word or that phrase at Skyrim if they wanted to. But what he paid attention to were the things that mattered. Yes, it looks like a Super Nintendo game from 1993, but it's incredible. This world you want to spend time in.
So, as somebody who's like cheesy chill games have included Viva Pinata and Harvest Moon. I love Viva Pinata, but you know what disappoints me about Viva Pinata is that
we haven't gotten another one.
It does that, and it's not in depth enough. I don't have enough space. I can't customize it. Stardew Valley will let me go whole hog to my heart's content, and I have Harvest Moon games with better graphics that like literally are going to my trade-in pile because I will never play them again now.
Right.
Because they don't have the level of customization and detail and the reward system to keep me interested in playing them.
Mm-hmm.
Have you...
Can we debunk? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
I was going to say, did you get it for PS4 or Switch?
I got it for PS4, but I think I'm also going to download it on the Switch. Because at the time I didn't have my Switch, but like it is the perfect Switch game.
If you get it for Switch, we could make a multiplayer game.
We could do.
There you go.
Yeah, I would be down.
I want to debunk this whole thing about graphics and graphical evolution. And look, I'm thrilled that like Cyberpunk 2077 is coming out and it looks ludicrously realistic. Like I've seen the trailers for it. Like that's just Keanu Reeves. And I'm impressed by like I got in Grand Theft Auto 5 where the cars are looking more and more realistic, and I can get models for it from Forza 4 and like drive a Ferrari F40 around with my steering wheel that I have on my desk right now, and it's incredible. But we are so focused on graphical revolutions that we've forgotten just how gorgeous a sprite-based game can be. And that's what Stardew Valley is so wonderful. Why it's so wonderful is that looks beautiful.
It's incredibly charming for what it is.
Yes.
And
go ahead. Oh, I was gonna say, well, like what's so interesting is like graphical fidelity was not originally about looks. Like if you look at, I was listening to a video the other day. I think it was pretty sure it was the completionist. But he was talking about how it's like I went from here on the Super Nintendo, then I went to the N64, and the N64 is ugly compared to what the Super Nintendo was. But the 3D graphical plane was just an avenue for different types of gameplay, rather than it just looking better. It's like right. When we went from the original Nintendo to the Super Nintendo, we were able to do this asymmetric look, which made the not asymmetric, the isometric look, which made Mario Kart possible, which is one of the biggest game franchises of all time, if not the biggest.
So on that note, though, I'm going to say once again where they got it right, okay, with Stardew. Is Stardew Valley gives you, I was real leery about the graphical style of this game. I was like, there's no way this is going to get me interested. I'm going to get bored. They provide just enough detail to give it personality. It is an amazing balance to strike. Like, I'm sorry, I know I sound like I'm raving about it, like what is essentially a very simple farming simulation. But like, the balance that they strike with giving you just enough customization to make your character look like you want them to, interesting enough. You can put on a funny little hat if that's your dig. Like, I got a golden pumpkin. I can either sell it for $2,500 or make a witch hat out of it. And I'm like, right. I'm making that witch hat. Like,
I'm gonna be a little controversial here.
It's just enough, but hang on, I'm gonna wrap this back into Skyrim.
Okay. That's fine.
Once again, then we look at Skyrim with its gigantic world and its graphical capabilities, and it's not interesting to look at, and it doesn't provide any personality to the world.
That game came out at the pinnacle of gray and brown.
Oh yeah. Oh gosh. Yes. The late 2000s, where everything had to be this monochromatic color palette. Like I think that Shadow of the Colossus is an amazing, incredible game, but the gray brown that they did to that, and I blame Quake, by the way, 1996, because they only had the brown color palette because they were trying to reduce the graphical restriction, trying to restrict it graphically so they would run more computers. But I firmly believe, and I know this is going to be a statement that a lot of people are going to hate, the pinnacle of graphics, the pinnacle of what a beautiful game really was in the early 1990s with sprite-based graphics. And you look at something like Street Fighter 2, and you look at the character models that they had and how gorgeously they're drawn, how much energy is in them. And then you look at Mortal Kombat from the same era. And Mortal Kombat's still a fun game. But which one would you rather look at? Street Fighter 2 or Street Fighter 2? Come on. We were trying to get more realistic with Mortal Kombat, with the motion capture that they were doing. And then they went into the CG.
We start to lose something. I remember when games like and you and I play in very different genres, but I remember when JRPGs were coming out with beautiful graphics and everything was new and everything looked prettier. Like each trailer you saw was more beautiful than the last.
Yeah.
And now I just feel like, some certain new games that you guys know I have feelings about, like, don't look as good as they should look for what I know we have the capability of doing. Well, and we've lost something.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of it has to do with, like, we rely on too heavily graphical power what should be left up to art direction. It's like I argue to say find a prettier game in that generation than Mario Galaxy. It's like that was on the Wii as compared to the PS3 and the 360. Mario Galaxy is an absolutely gorgeous game. There's another game that was absolutely beautiful to look at. The graphics were not top tier, but it was called El Shaddai. El Shaddai, it was this obscure little Japanese game that was on the 360. Might have been on the PS3, but I think it was just on 360. But it was just this gorgeous game, which was the retelling of Enoch, the Book of Enoch, and it was this ultra Japanese thing, but like each world had this absolutely gorgeous look to it, but graphically it was not a powerhouse. Right. So like we have so much focus on graphical power when art direction is a much more
key is another great example.
Yeah.
Okami is a fantastic.
Okami.
Like not a prettier game out there that generation. Period.
I will say this. I'm taking back a little bit about this may sound a little contradictory from what I just said, where my favorite generation of looking games was in the early 1990s. I think that the best looking game of all time so far, and I will fight this to my dying day, is Cuphead, because there is no way that could have been accomplished in any generation prior than when it was. And there's no way you could have had that purely hand-drawn look without the power that we would have now. But it is, to me, the full realization of the artistic endeavor of what the side-scroller wanted to be in the early 1990s, all the way up through its heyday with the final really great last side-scroller of the original side-scroller generation being Castlevania Symphony of the Night. Up between Castlevania Symphony of the Night and Cuphead, there is no better looking side scroller. There is nothing else, I think, that achieves what Cuphead does, which lets you. They tried with Epic Mickey to make, like the drawn world, but they're still doing it with polygons. Mm-hmm. There is something so monumentally different, such an achievement with Cuphead, with the ability to play a cartoon that would not have been possible even 10 years ago, that they were able to achieve with this. And yeah, a lot of other people would have gone the CG route, made them 3D, even if it was a side scroller, but they stuck to their guns and they did something that not even animation studios are doing anymore, which is use ink on paper. And they did something that I wish I could have been able to play when I was 10 years old.
Oh man, I couldn't agree more with that. Cuphead is such an incredibly beautiful game. It's probably like looks wise the prettiest game in the generation.
Yeah,
but, like,
there's nothing like
it. You do have some AAA games that get it right though. It's like looking at the new Horizon Zero Dawn, the first one too. The Horizon games are absolutely
beautiful. For photorealistic 3D games, they are absolutely dead. They're probably some of the better examples.
It's like they go for the photorealism, but there's this also like painting-esque feel to it. It's like just watching the trailer, like of her swimming underwater, and seeing these bright green seaweed move as the robotic giant like barracuda thing swims through it. It's like it was just beautiful to look at.
There is a lot to like about this upcoming generation of games, and I have a lot of hope that we're getting away from being able to see polygons. The biggest jump in an individual game series I can think of was Doom 3 to the new Doom that came out in 2016. And at the time, I loved Doom 3, but now I look at it and I'm like, I can see the angles and the polygons, even for what at the time was a very high resolution game.
Real quick, and this is the last thing I think I'm going to say on graphics, because like we have gone on a tangent, but I will say that like I was one of those that when like right after Twilight Princess, Legend of Zelda, and when they started to get away from the photorealistic Zelda, I was one of those that was like, no, I hate this. Like, a lot of us thought we wanted like a really photorealistic Zelda, but unfortunately, like looking back now, I'm kind of glad they went more with the like cell shaded hybrid that we saw in Skyward Sword, where it got like a little bit pointillism artsy, and it looks like it's really come out in Breath of the Wild. I haven't gotten to play it yet. Hopefully soon, now that I have to Switch. But like I'm kind of glad they went that way because I've seen so many photorealistic games just like end up looking so bad.
Yeah.
You know, over time. So.
Yeah, but we have to think that, you know, like with Skyrim, when you get 10 years on, what's going to look goofy? What's going to look dated and stuck in a particular time?
I will argue for this. Like, even when Zelda took Wind Waker and went full-blown cel-shaded in the reverse of what they'd done in Twilight Princess,
Yep.
like, it looked goofy. But I look back on it now, it hasn't aged badly.
No.
Yeah, you can play that game a lot easier than you can play Twilight Princess.
And the HD remaster is gorgeous.
It really
like, they
is.
just brought it up to 4K, and it looks great.
I wanted to come out on Switch. I really wanted to come out on Switch.
That is still a super playable game, and I was against the graphical move when it happened, but like, I see how we got to where we are in Breath of the Wild, and I think it's a result of those kind of decisions being made and saying, hey, let's play with a more animated version, let's play with something that's a little more artsy, and down the road, I think it's given a lot more freedom of imagination. Yeah. Whereas Skyrim and Elder Scrolls is only ever going to look like what it does. Like,
yeah. Well, I'm actually glad. I mean, this I feel is an important tangent to take. Whenever we're doing the Discomfort Zone, we really do try to break down what is good objectively as we can figure out about a given property and what is not as good. And we have to talk about the good stuff to counteract the garbage. And you know, I am looking forward to the next generation of games because, you know, we have gotten to a point where frame rates are no longer an issue. When we were kids, let's just be honest here, playing on an N64, GoldenEye at 12 frames a second, or Perfect Dark at 4 frames a second sometimes. It's just it's a thing that we just live with it. You know, we don't deal with now. And as things get more, I just hope that as things get more realistic, people get better about exploring things that aren't realistic. That's where the art comes in. And I think that limitations, and this is an overall conversation, limitations can be a wonderful thing for an artist. That's what the fugues, counterpoint comes from self-imposed limitations on a composer to create a melody and a composition that's beautiful. And we get these amazing compositions from it because they limit themselves.
Speaking of bringing it back to the video game aspect, like today's episode of Strong Songs, different thing that I love talking about, was on Mario Brothers 1-1, and how everyone knows da 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 da, and it's like, like everyone knows that song. It's one of the most iconic songs.
You can play it on a calculator.
It's like he was talking about. It's like not only was it amazing because of the limitations, but it was probably amazing because he had those limitations and he had to figure out how to make something feel not repetitive on such a limited set of hardware. And one thing I didn't know was like the Super Nintendo itself had a synthesizer inside of it. Nintendo had a synthesizer inside of it, you know. So this little things like that, those limitations, how they lead to amazing things. Yeah.
Mario himself comes from graphical limitations. You know, well, we can't really do a mouth, but we can do a mustache. Well, we can make it look like he's wearing a jumpsuit. We can kind of give him a hat. You know, it was just the smallest number of pixels they could possibly use to still represent a human. And we need to value that more. We need to value limitations more. And this will be a separate conversation for another time. We'll talk about artists who, when they're let do whatever they want, make garbage. And trust me.
Don't open that one up with me.
Oh, trust me. I would love to talk about John Kricfalusi. Oh, yeah. John Kricfalusi and Ren and Stimpy is probably the best modern example. There you go. That's the right face right there. And John Kricfalusi has other problems now. You can feel free to Google him. But yeah, this is the whole thing that I take away from the Skyrim discussion is that things that will wow us at a given point in time will look incredibly dated in only 10 years. It's the Salieri issue. If you've ever watched Amadeus, you know, Salieri is so lauded in his time and now completely forgotten, because the things that really matter will always stick out. So that was our discomfort zone. We all got uncomfortable this week, having to deal with the various things we got uncomfortable with. I had to watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, which is indeed very bizarre. Although I have come to appreciate it. I'm not yet where I like it, but I'm getting there. And Jeremy, you had to suffer, my friend. I'm very sorry for what I put you through with Bingo the Clown. For those of you interested, feel free to Google or go to YouTube and find Bingo the Clown, and you too can lose brain cells. And Sydnee, yes, Skyrim, you probably felt like you took an arrow to the knee having to play that game this week.
A little bit.
But that's how these things go in the discomfort zone. So join us next week when we have more pain. We'll probably get back to a regular casual Fanatics episode, but we have more discomfort to get ourselves into. And we have a lot of discomfort to get into, which is very, very, very fun for you and occasionally fun for us. Until next time, I am Paul Stadden. That is Sydnee Johnson. That is Jeremy Brazell. We are the Casual Fanatics, and this has been Uncomfortable. Bye.
Toodaloo.
Ciao. Keep going.
Sledgehammer sound.